Skip knows tanning and Skip knows Melanotan-II. In this chapter, I want to get into my experience with not only tanning, but with years of using the compound Melanotan-II. The disclaimer is this: I am not a doctor, and I do not play one on the DVD. I do not play one on the internet. I do not play one on the computer in emails, texts, or anything else. I understand that I say that a lot, but it's only to reiterate that I am not giving medical advice. I'm giving my opinions based on my experience only. I've tanned since I was roughly 16 years old. I did it pretty much like everybody else did. I would start in the spring, I would burn, I would start to get a tan into the summer, and then once I got that tan, summer was done and I was done tanning. Go white for the winter, come back around to the spring, repeat the cancerous or precancerous cycle. By that I mean the damage, or most of the damage caused by the sun, is the overexposure or the burning. A lot of people think that just tanning alone is unsafe, unhealthy, and I don't believe that that's the case. And I don't believe that's the case because it seems illogical, and I have spoken to dermatologists and even my wife's cancer doctor, and they've agreed with me. My wife's cancer doctor, you may say. My wife was diagnosed with melanoma in 2011. She had 3 surgeries, 2 spots removed on her back, 1 between her toes, and has had consistent updates since then with no recurring issues, thank God. Because of that diagnosis, obviously I was a little anxious and figured maybe I should get checked too, considering I've spent a lot more time in the sun than my wife ever had. Now, my wife was born and raised in Florida. At the same time, she is darker complected than I am because I am 65% German, believe it or not. I tell everybody I'm French Polynesian, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Latino. Basically, I just lie because it's fun. No one believes that I'm German anyway, so what the hell? And I have a friend with me. Hello, Miss Loki. Yeah. Anyway, after this diagnosis, or actually when she was going through the surgeries, and we were dealing with these 3, I call it basically 3 separate episodes over a course of about 3 years. I did have her doctor check me, and I remember it like it was yesterday. The doctor, I think, purposely left me in the room for 40 minutes before the exam just so I could sit there and ponder my death, my mortality, I guess. But nonetheless, after a very extensive checkup, she let me know that I was the darkest person she had ever seen, and that I was dark in places that I should not have been dark. And she wanted to know why, because obviously she knew it wasn't normal. But she did tell me that I had no issues, nothing that they were concerned about at all, nothing to even have to watch. So obviously I breathed a sigh of relief. And you may think that I left there and went, gosh, I'm going to limit my sun exposure and just play it safe. Nah, I just went to the fucking tanner. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it was it was admittedly a little unnerving because, like I said, I had spent so much time in the sun and in tanners since I was 16 years old that I got to go home and tell my wife, hey, all that time that I've spent above and beyond the years and hours that you've spent in the sun, you have melanoma and I have nothing. So she was happy nonetheless. She kind of likes me, I think, still. But nonetheless, for those that don't know, melanoma, there are different types of skin cancer, obviously. Squamous, basal cell, you'll hear those terms a lot. Those are kind of the, and I hate to say this because I don't want to give the impression that they're not important or that they're not significant, because they certainly can be, or they can grow to be something more significant. But they're not the types of skin cancer that want to kill you. Melanoma, on the other hand, wants to kill you. The best way that I can explain melanoma is melanoma is that drunk friend of yours that's looking for a fight. Basically, melanoma is just looking for an organ to kill you. That's just the bottom line. So the surgeries to remove melanoma are quite extensive. I mean, they have to go very, very deep, cover a large surface area to make sure that no cells have escaped from that area. Now, I noticed the spot on my wife's back, thought that it didn't look right. She was about due for an annual physical. Anyway, I said, hey, have the doctor look at it, give you peace of mind, probably nothing. And of course, they wanted to do a biopsy, take a look at it, because they thought that it was irregular. They found another spot on her back, did the biopsies. Long story short, they got her in relatively quickly to have those spots removed. The blessing here was this, and this is why it's important, and I encourage anybody listening. It's actually a good reason why I did this segment, because you may think, well, Skip, why are you going into tanning and your wife's melanoma and everything else? It's about bodybuilding and TRT and longevity and stuff like that. It is, but longevity and a big part of longevity, is not dying from the choices that we make that involve us looking better, basically vanity reasons to a certain degree. And tanning is a part of that. Maybe not for everybody, but for a lot of people. Most people, even if they don't tan a lot, they kind of wish they had more of a tan. If they have the opportunity to be out in the sun, or they're on vacation, they're going to slather up with some oil, going to try to get a little color so they can come back from the vacation a little darker than they were, knowing that they probably look a little bit better. I guess the mantra has always been, and I believe it, brown fat looks better than white fat. And if you're in great shape, you're going to look better with a tan than you do without. It just is what it is. Now, the melanoma, and the reason that I say it was a blessing to find the 2 spots on her back is because had I not noticed that, they would have never found the spot between her toes. The spot between her toes was not even irregular. The only reason they found it was because they did an extensive checkup, I guess, over her entire body. When I say her entire body, I'm talking inside cavities, things like that. They go to great lengths. You can get skin cancer inside of your vagina, your vajayjay, your picha. I have kids, girls, so they have different names for shit like that. Anyway, so to find this spot between her toes, that would have been a spot in a cancerous situation that would have probably gone unnoticed. You never know if it would have even been noticed. So at one point they were talking about actually taking her toe, which was, concerning. Obviously, I don't fuck bitches with 4 toes. That's fucked up. But anyway, didn't have to take the toe. Did have to dig in quite a bit, to make sure that they got all the cells out, and that sort of thing. So what this did is it actually, the situation with my wife allowed me to have a very in-depth conversation with the dermatologist and the cancer surgeon as well. And I'm not intimidated by too many people. The cancer surgeon, though, I just felt like, I'm going to go in here and she's just going to look at me like, you're just a fucking idiot. Because this is not only their area of expertise, but they know this shit like the back of their hand. They've gone to school for a long, long time. They're 100 times smarter than I am, and I'm going to go in there. And I felt like she was just going to look at me and go, that was the worst attempt at trying to justify using a tanner that I've ever heard in my life. So anyway, had lengthy discussions with both of them and was actually pretty surprised that 95% of what I said they agreed with. And some of those things are important, so I'm going to let you know what they are. Number one, the initial thing that bothered me after her diagnosis was that she was supposed to stay out of the sun and have no sun exposure without using like 100 or I don't even know, just a ridiculously high SPF. Basically saying you just can't have any sun because sun is bad. And I mean, the reality is this. Burning is bad and overexposure is bad. The more fair-skinned you are, the more likely you are to burn and for that exposure to be damaging or potentially damaging. Okay, and one of the reasons I say that is a situation that I proposed to one of the doctors, and that is this. If skin cancer rates or if your ability to get skin cancer was entirely due to exposure only, then there would be much higher incidence of skin cancer in those climates or in those populations that are, say, tropical, closer to the equator, sunnier climates, that sort of thing. And that's not the case. There are actually far more cases. The large majority of skin cancer cases are in fair-skinned individuals in climates that are not necessarily known to be sunny. The logic is this. The people that live, or the people of those populations that live in those areas, are not used to that type of sun exposure. They're not used to prolonged exposure. So as an example, you would think maybe in California or Florida, you would have higher incidence of skin cancer, but that's not the case. Actually, Denver, Colorado has quite a high skin cancer rate. Yes, it's a relatively sunny place, but it's not known for beaches, people being outside tanning all the time, that sort of thing. So where you have higher incidence is where you have more fair-skinned individuals who are not used to that kind of exposure. So the argument that I posed to them was, well, now if my wife is out without any SPF for 15 minutes at my son's baseball game, she's going to fry. And that means if she fries, there's going to be damage. So why wouldn't the recommendation be, instead of no exposure at all, to have moderate exposure so that the skin is actually still used to seeing sun, and you can still maybe get a little bit of a tan. You still would use, what are they called? SPF, what am I called? Sun blockers, or I'm at a loss for the term now. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. The lotions and the oils that block those harmful rays. Not entirely, but they block a good part of them, which brings down that exposure and the potential for damage. The other argument that I had was finding the cancer between her toes clearly had nothing to do with sun exposure. I understand that on her back, if there were irregular cells, that could have been exacerbated by sun exposure or damage. I get that. But between her toes, that was not caused. You don't get sun between your toes. You don't get burnt between your toes. So she conceded, actually both of them did, that there is an important or significant component that is hereditary as well. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not genetically predisposed to getting cancer, that you should just go out and fuck around in the sun and not take care of your skin and not worry about overexposure. But the hereditary component is important. It's significant. It is with anything, not just skin exposure, but whether it be alcoholism or anything else. These genetic predisposed, whether you're genetically predisposed plays a big part in whether you're going to have issues with certain situations, whether it be skin exposure, skin cancer, liver disease, alcoholism, things like that. So again, they were agreeing with me 95% of the time, so they still wanted to know why I was so dark. So I let them know that I had used Melanotan for years, low dose, explained to them what it was actually kind of surprised that they didn't know what it was, because I figured that they may have at least heard about it for the trial, studies that have been done, things like that. But they were not familiar, excuse me, at all with the compound. So I explained my logic, and my logic is this simple. I would rather use a compound in low dose that increases pigmentation so that I tend to tan instead of burn, and I keep a consistent level of exposure to the sun, or fake sun for that matter, 2 to 3 times a week. Right now I go 3 times a week for 8 minutes per session. I don't necessarily consider that overexposure. The fact that I can keep a tan all year round, I feel kind of, it doesn't protect me completely, but it makes it, I feel it makes it more likely that I will have less potential to burn, which means I have less potential for damage. And if I have less potential to burn and less potential for damage, then I have less of a risk, logically, at getting skin cancer. And they agreed with me. I don't know that they wanted to. It was kind of one of those, I'm exaggerating a little bit. They didn't really do that. But it was not something that they just fell out of their mouth with, you're absolutely right. That makes total sense. They saw the logic in it. They understood my position. They did ask me about side effects and things like that of the drug itself. And obviously, anytime you take any compound, peptide, drug, whatever it is, there are potential sides and there are risks that you have to evaluate. And in this situation, I feel cost to benefit. This is just me. I'm just giving you my opinion on why I do the things that I do and why I use this compound and why I feel that it's the lesser of the evils. Look, I'm going to tan anyway, okay? I want to have color. I don't want to be white. I ride my motorcycle with my wife in the summer. I'm at baseball games. We're outside a lot. If I don't have consistent exposure, I'm going to burn, and then I'm going to cause, I feel, damage to my skin. Plus, I'm not going to look anywhere near as sexy as I do with this tan. Okay, maybe not. But anyway, to me it's important to have that. To have color, maybe it's a little bit over the top for some people. Maybe I'm too dark, whatever. It's not your business. I'm good with it. Okay, so they agreed with me. I ended up leaving. I've been back for consistent checkups and everything has been good. I've gotten or had no issues. My wife has not had any issues, thank God. But I will tell you this, having melanoma in the past makes it incredibly difficult to get a really good life insurance policy. Just giving you a heads up on that. As far as the history, just so that you understand, I have used this compound, and some of you may think, oh my God, that's ridiculous, that's silly or whatever. I've used the compound for the better part of 10 years. I probably started using it right around 06. Okay, I used it with the typical internet dosing protocol that is posted all over the internet, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It is way overkill, way too much. And any time you can reduce dosage on a compound, you absolutely want to. So my recommendations for dosing are this. Typically, the bottles are going to come in 10 milligram bottles. Mix 3 ml of solution or water with the 10 milligram, and then dose at 10 units per day. Okay, that's very, very low based on the recommendations that you're going to find on the internet. On the internet, they're basically saying to load it 1 milligram a day, sometimes half a milligram a day for a week or two. Why? Because we as bodybuilders are incredibly impatient. We feel we need to front load everything. Anything that involves raising blood levels, whether it be hormones or peptides or whatever, we just apparently feel like we can't wait. We need to get those levels up as quickly as possible. My advice is just be patient. If you haven't been dark, what the hell is a couple more weeks? The sides are rough. I've heard of people vomiting. They do the shot, 10 minutes later, they just puke. Okay? It really hits you hard. It flushes your skin. It makes your blood pressure go up. I mean, you can literally look in the mirror and go, holy crap, it's hitting me. It makes you feel very, very nauseous, even after using the compound for years and years and years. If I go on vacation for a week and don't use it, and I come back to only a 10 or 15 unit dose, I'm going to feel it a little bit after about 10 minutes. And that's, like I said, 10, 11 years of using the compound, and I don't use it very high dose. So, to minimize the sides and just be patient, you'll get your color, it'll come. Just use that. Roughly 10 units. You can even back off. Some people with darker skin or that are darker complected, you can get by with 5 units once you get to the color that you're looking for. Now, one of the main questions I get a lot is, can I just use the compound and not tan? And the answer really is no. If you're very dark complected, you might be able to get away with it, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to get different shades of color. Your eyes are going to be darker, things like that. It's not a very normal, even look if you're not tanning. Okay? So then the question becomes, how much do I tan? 2 to 3 times a week. Look, if you can't get dark, even the fairest skinned white guy will get dark eventually and get good color on tan alone 2 to 3 times a week on 10 units a day. Okay? It may take a while. It may take 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks before you have the color you want, but it's 4 weeks. That's just not bad. Okay, now, whether you stay on after that and you continue your tan year round, that's a decision that you have to make. Okay? The decision that I have made is I'm going to keep my color year round so that I run less of a risk of any type of burning, so that I run less of a risk of any type of damage. Okay, if I go out on my motorcycle in 2 weeks and I don't have a bandana on and it's sunny out and I'm out for 6 hours, the top of my head is not going to get burnt. And that's huge because obviously if you don't burn, there's far less of a risk of damage to your skin. Another thing to note that is, there's really not much information out there about this, okay? And that is, I have found that Melanotan-II can negatively impact blood viscosity. Okay? I came to this because I had a friend who's roughly my age who had to go to the hospital. He was lightheaded and everything else. He did some blood work, couldn't figure out what was going on. And his blood work came back that his hematocrit was something like 62. I mean, it was just off the chart. Now, he was on TRT dosing, but you don't get to 62, a 62 hematocrit anyway, on TRT dosing. So they were trying to figure out what it was, anything else. The only thing they could really come up with was the Melanotan-II. And he asked me initially, he said, hey, the doctors are saying it's the Melanotan-II. They told me to stop it. We're going to redo blood work in about 4 weeks. Excuse me. And I remember telling him, you know, pretty clearly, that's not it. That's not going to have any impact on it, but whatever. Go ahead and stop it, redo the blood work, and you'll see that there won't be any change. Well, they redid the blood work, and after only 4 weeks of stopping the Melanotan and not changing his TRT dosing, he went from 62 to 57. That's a 5-point drop in hematocrit in 4 weeks. I mean, that's almost as good as just being on a heavy cycle for months and months and months, stopping it cold, and 4 or 5 weeks later, your hematocrit's down 5 points. I mean, certainly in the same ballpark. So I still was skeptical. I just thought, gosh, it just doesn't seem to be much of until when I had my issues with my blood in 2013 and was taking a closer look at what the hell was going on with my blood work, because I had never had issues prior to 2013 before. It became very obvious that the Melanotan-II was playing a part as well. Now, does it for everybody? No. It's along the same lines as, does GEAR, or AAS, increase hematocrit, hemoglobin, and RBC count for everybody across the board? And it doesn't. I remember when I was younger, I mean, I cycled for years. I'd be on, and my numbers would not be out of range. They'd be high range, but they would not be out of range until I got older. So I think what happens is this. This seems to be the most logical explanation. When you're younger, you can drink and you can get away with it, and it's nothing like drinking when you're older. I'm not even talking about blood work or the impact even on your liver or anything else, just how you feel. I remember being in my 20s, and a lot of people my age listening to this will relate, and you'll understand, you'll be nodding and be like, yeah, you're right, I know exactly what you're talking about. When we're in our 20s, you could drink, go out drinking with your buddies, next day go to the gym, and if your workout was off a little bit, it didn't matter. You still had a huge sick pump, you still put up good numbers, you still look great, whatever. You do that when you're in your 40s, and it's like you feel like death. It's hard to train. You know, the session was worthless. It was just shit. And you have to basically just admit that it isn't, you aren't what you used to be. It's the same thing with AAS. You can get away with it for years. The body is very resilient. But you keep doing it years and years, and eventually your blood is going to start getting thicker. Your numbers are going to start to go up. What I have found with the Melanotan-II is it's the same thing. I mean, I've used that compound for 11 years now. It didn't impact me when I started in 6, 07, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, until 13. And it was in, 14, 15, when I was playing around, I could not figure out. I'm like, gosh, I've changed my dosing with my AAS. I'm not cycling anymore. I'm TRT, and the numbers have fallen off, but they haven't completely fallen off. What the hell is going on? Then I stopped the Melanotan-II, and within 8 weeks, my numbers were in range, even while I was still on TRT dosing for testosterone. Pretty obvious. I mean, between that situation and my buddy's situation prior to that, it's pretty clear that that was the case. So I took that kind of public and talking about that with clients, talking about it on the internet, and had other people who've used Melanotan who would be in that demographic, who are older, and asked them if they had had any blood issues, and it started to come out that that was the case. They didn't see the connection either. So it's just something that if you're going to use the compound, you need to understand that it's a possibility. I would say this. If AAS does not increase your blood numbers for hematocrit, hemoglobin, and RBC, it's probably pretty likely that the Melanotan-II won't either. Can't say for sure, but I'm saying that it's not likely. So basically, just my thoughts on the tanning and the Melanotan-II in closing. Whether you're going to tan, whether you're going to use Melanotan-II, it's all a personal decision. Those are risks or cost to benefit that you have to weigh out. I'm giving you my experience, which is almost certainly more than the large majority of people out there. I don't know that there are many people who have as much experience with tanning and Melanotan-II that I do. So my advice is weigh my experience and my opinions with your conscience and decide what is in your best interest. Because at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with the things that you're doing based on your decisions. I'm not going to hear, well, Skip, you told... That's not fair. I'm giving you my experience. I'm giving you my opinions. You make those decisions for yourself.